As Albert Einstein said, excellence is never an accident. It is always a result of focused attention, sincere effort, intelligent and skillful execution. It represents wise choices among many alternatives. And that's what you do each day as educators and secretaries and all those who work in our schools. Because to my mind, excellence and equity go hand in hand. They're two sides of the same coin. You cannot say you're an excellent school system if there is a long tail of failure. And, even more importantly, when you examine that long tail of failure, if the kids who are clustered at the bottom are children who live in poverty, then there is cause for concern. There's a moral imperative. Teachers get that message so well. Many of us have entered teaching because of the moral imperative to educate all of our nation's children. That's why we chose teaching. That's why I chose teaching some 37 years ago, growing up in Jamaica. I felt that I could change the world. And I know you believe that too. Never be dispirited. When you are in your classroom, you work wonders with those students, and you feel that sense of moral imperative. Economists will tell us that there is an economic imperative as well. Stats Canada says that a mere 1% gain in literacy brings back $18.5 billion to the economy. So there's an economic imperative. There's a demographic imperative. Toronto, Ontario constitute the most diverse parts of the world. We have children coming from all over the world, and parents have high expectations. The social justice, which our director talked about, why equity is important. There's also a community health imperative. I believe that literacy relates to the health and well-being of our communities. And there's also, of course, the human rights imperative as well. Our director talked about high expectations. A statement I saw recently in New Zealand, where I'm working quite a bit these days, is engage me or enrage me. That's what the students are saying to you. Engage me or enrage me. And all the strategies that you have learned and which you know so well as teachers can help to bring about that level of engagement. How many people have seen the movie Invictus? Oh, it's a wonderful movie. If you haven't seen it, you must see it. Where Morgan Freeman plays Nelson Mandela, Matt Damon plays the rugby player. And Nelson Mandela goes to Matt Damon to talk about how do you inspire your people. And believe me, those talks from the president really made a difference about inspiration. And of course, he quoted the part from the movie which says that I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. It's a wonderful movie. It will continue to inspire you. Now, if we look at what the world's best performing systems have done, a recent study has been done by the McKinsey & Company, and they talk about the areas which are so important. When they studied these systems across the world, they found that the world's best performing systems do three things. They get the right people to become teachers, they develop them into effective structures, and they put in place all the targeted supports to support those teachers so that they can support the students. I came across a saying recently, if you don't feed the teachers, they will eat the children. Lesson number one, the quality of an education system cannot exceed the quality of its teachers. Number two, the way to improve outcomes, we know that, is to improve instruction. Number three, high performance requires every student, not just a few. The bottom must come up as well. As Dr. Spence said, we must close the achievement gaps. And we do that without excuses, ladies and gentlemen. No longer can today's teachers seek excuses about the parents. There's a saying that parents are sending us the best kids they have. They're not keeping the brighter ones at home. And I really believe that. No excuses anymore. Do you remember the statement from Ron Edmonds? And I really like that, because in 1979, think of how long ago this was. And I know in the TDSB you hear this statement very often, but I'm going to repeat it. Ron Edmonds, who was an African American, the patriarch of the effective schools movement, I would say, he said this: we can, whenever and wherever we choose, educate all children whose schooling is of interest to us. We already know more than we need to know to do that. But whether we do so or not will ultimately depend upon how we feel about the fact that we haven't done so thus far. TDSB teachers, you already know more than you need to know to educate the children under your care. We heard already about the research from Dr. Lazat around parental involvement and the key benefits. You know them: better long-term academic achievement and so on, fewer retention in grades, decreased placement in special education programs, fewer behavioral problems, and it goes on and on and on, and more effective schools. So let me join the others in reinforcing the importance of engaging parents in their children's education. High expectations requires a number of things. For example, a challenging academic curriculum for all students. All students are going to be required, ladies and gentlemen, to pay for the pensions of this large cohort of baby boomers. We cannot leave them behind. We need every one of them. So we must challenge them in terms of high expectations. School-wide commitment, curriculum, task, instruction that engage students, teaching of higher order thinking skills to all students, and early interventions to support the students who are falling behind. Personalizing instruction. These are all some of the strategies that will be important. Sharing examples. Many students don't know what good work looks like. Sharing those examples so they know what the next steps are for them. This finding is so consistent. Consistent and specific feedback. Feedback, feedback, feedback. Very important. Motivating the unmotivated students. I know people used to get very upset with me and they would say, Avis, what do we do if they're not motivated? I said, we went to Teachers College. We learned strategies to motivate them. Nobody promised us that they were all going to be perfect students, coming in, sitting down, and be ready to learn. I believe the test of a good teacher is one who can motivate the unmotivated student. I really believe that. You know, I thought I was a crackerjack teacher. I was so confident until I got a special ed class. I had to go back to school. I realized I knew very little about teaching. I had to go back and take special education programs. Because when you have special education, and let me encourage you, there's one course that I encourage you to take as classroom teachers, special education, and maybe guidance next. I know I love guidance. But if you say you are an outstanding teacher, you must be able to teach the slow learner effectively. You must be able to teach the gifted student effectively. All of them require your attention.